and to be with all of you. There's no other place I would rather be. In the midst of my sorrow and my grief this week, I also thought of a lot of stories from Guruji. I'm not going to tell them all. I'm going to give you some highlights. So one of the most memorable stories for me was the day before Guruji's 80th birthday. And he came, of course, in the practice room, and he walked over to the rope wall. He put his palms for Adamukha Svanasana and had his timer, of course, right in between his arms. And I saw that he set his timer for 10 minutes, which was not unusual. After he finished Adamukha Svanasana, he walked away from the wall, and he stood in Tadasana. And it seemed that he stood there for a very long time, because I was watching. I didn't know what he was going to do. And then all of a sudden, he went like this. And then I knew what he was going to do. And he proceeded, on the day before his 80th birthday, doing 108 Tadasana, or Dhanurasana, without disturbing his feet. His feet stayed like this. He didn't linger in Urdhva-mukha, Dhanurasana, or Tadasana. He did one right after the other. And then when he finished, he lied down like this, in Shavasana. So that was one of my most memorable experiences of Guruji's practice. Another memory is when Guruji was in Estes Park to promote his Light on Life book. He was on a Light on Life tour. And on this particular evening, he had just finished being interviewed by Annette Benny, who some of you have heard of. And after the interview, we had no idea that he was going to do this, but he gave darshan to 1,200 people. And Manusa and I were sitting there in awe, 1,200 people. When he was finished, we walked to the car. He was in the front seat. I was in the back seat, and I said, "Guruji, that was really extraordinary." And he turned around and looked at me and said, "That was then." And then one other story, and I think many of you in the room have had this story. Over the last 40 years or so, I often had to meet with Guruji about a certification issue or an association issue or a convention issue. And I would go into the library and ask him the question, and he would begin to talk. But inevitably, I would always end up getting the answer to my question while in Utthita Trikonasana, in Tai Ching, or in Urdhva Dhanurasana in a dress. So we always ended up in a pose. And then finally, when he was at my home in 1984, this was after our first convention, Manusa's convention, many of the teachers, including Guruji himself and Birju, you might have been there too. We had a mixed gathering. I invited some of my students to bring their husbands and wives, and there was a quiet moment, and one of the husbands said, "Mr. Iyengar, so what do you do when you're not practicing yoga?" And Guruji looked up and said, "My dear fellow, I practice yoga 24 hours a day." So those are my sharings with you. And I want to say that Guruji taught me how to live, and I don't say that lightly. And because of Guruji, we tread more lightly on the earth.